Everyone is talking about the India-Europe trade deal. However, when they are talking about, largely everyone is discussing how much tariffs have reduced, what kind of a deal is it, what products are there. But real question is not just the tariffs, not just the list of products. What kind of a place this deal will put India into? How it is going to reshape the future of India and Europe? Is it a deal of compromise or is it a deal for future commitment? Or will we become more integrated part of the global value chain? These are the questions we will try to find out. Let us start this discussion. My name is Gaurav Bansal and we are watching Indian Economy by Corpus. Let us start. First of all, what is the strategic importance? Just a small overview. If we combine Europe as a single economy, then it would become the second largest economy between the USA and China, and that would make India the fourth largest economy in the world. So it is a deal between the second and the fourth largest market in the world. Although second and fourth looks quite close to each other, to put things in perspective, India's size here is not as big as or nowhere close to the overall size of Europe. India's size is close to Germany, slightly close to Germany alone. And if we put all the European countries together, definitely they are around 6 times larger than India. However, India is growing much faster. And if we just go by the current trends, and if we take the past 10-year trends, then India will be almost 1/3 of Europe very soon. How soon? By 2035. So the pace at which India is growing and the pace at which Europe is growing is very different from each other. As a result, today it might look like a deal between two unequals, but it really has the future of a deal between two competent and equally promising and contributing partners. Let us look at it. So if we look at the major ideas in the deal, major conditions in the deal, then we find it is much more modern deal. It is not like the old FTAs or PTAs where the scope of the trade agreement was limited products. This deal is very comprehensive and has a lot of future orientation, and we will look at it. Right now I'm just summarizing what are the major indications from here. And for India, it presents European Union as a long-term stable market, as a long-term stable destination. Not only a market for our products, but also a market for our services, a place for our students and a place to work for Indian people also, provided that everyone is following the legal procedures and the proper channels. And both the countries, or both the regions I should say rather, are also coming close right now because of pressure by Donald Trump. That is why in the beginning I raised the question that whether it is a deal between two unequals or is it a deal of compromise. So the negotiation between India and Europe or European Union have been going on for more than a decade. And there have been several disagreements. And I believe if Donald Trump factor would not have been there, this deal may not have taken place today. It was definitely on cards. It was going to be there. So this deal is not there because of Donald Trump policies and uncertainty, but this deal has been signed now because of Donald Trump's policy. Because there were lots of areas where both the regions were not ready to compromise. But now Donald Trump has encouraged both the regions to come forward and dissolve their differences. In that way, definitely Donald Trump is a great unifier. Now, if we look at it, the major analysis that I can do without getting into details in the beginning is India is going to get the front load benefits for the labor intensive exports. So those sectors which create more jobs, India has focused on them, that in the beginning we want low tariffs for these, for example textile. Okay? And in future there are certain sensitive areas where India doesn't want to open its market right now, And since it is give and take, you not only open your market, but also you get to access the other market. So those sensitive areas have been kept slightly on backtrack. It's not that they are not going to be in reduced tariffs, but they will not be in the zero tariffs or low tariffs immediately, particularly areas related to food processing, agriculture, and some of the other aspects. Europe is going to get access to the wealthy and the urban upper middle class of India. Those are the areas which Europe has looked forward to. So while managing this deal, India's priority was to focus on its labor extensive or labor intensive exports. Whereas for Europe, the priority was getting access to the urban upper middle class market which has capacity to spend, rather than focusing on the broader market. So in the beginning, this is where Europe will get immediate access and significantly lower tariffs. As we will see the details of the products, you will identify this immediately. Whereas getting access to masses in India will happen only in phased manner, and in certain cases it might not be there, it would not be there. So let's start. If we look at the European exports to India, you will find that almost 15% or more were machinery and electrical equipments, and another 6 to 7% were aircrafts, and that is because of Airbus that almost all Indian aviation companies prefer. Similarly, there are some pharmaceuticals, there are some motor vehicles, there are some pearls, precious stones, metals, plastics, chemicals. Overall, if we look at it, then the total exports of Europe to India are close to $50 billion, out of which, as I told you, almost 15 or rather 16, which is nearly one third, is machinery and electricals. And then the aircraft, spacecraft, optical equipments, etc. So these are certain product mix or basket that Europe exports to India. And this is the 2024 data. Now, out of these, exactly the list which I talked about, let us see what tariffs are changing. So currently on the machinery and electrical equipment, there are up to 44% duties. And here in the future, it will become zero. So on machinery and electrical equipment, India is going to reduce tariffs to almost zero. However, there is a certain time frame to it. It will start after nearly 5 years, and generally the entire framework will take up to 10 years. Then aircraft, spacecraft, here also from nearly 11% duty previously, it is going to almost zero. Optical, medical, surgical equipments, here also it is getting from almost 27.5% to nearly zero for 90% of the products. So there are some 10% of the products for which India might not reduce the duty, but for 90% of the products it will become zero. So it will also take a time frame of 5 to 7 years to begin with and 10 years to complete, let's say. And similarly, it is for plastics, from where it will come from 16% to almost zero, and pearls, precious stones. If you see, almost everywhere duties are coming to 0% for large number of products. So there are lots of benefits here, and these are some of the key export categories. These are the dominant exports that Europe makes to India. That is why it is argued that Europe is going to get 0% duty on 97% of its current exports. 97% of products that Europe currently exports to India, they will be able to enter into India at 0% duty. This is how the change is going to take place. So it is a significant change. That's why this deal is a significant deal. It is not just a token deal, or it is not a deal to use as a bargain chip. Sometimes deals are signed as a bargain chip. For example, Europe wanted, let's say, Europe wanted a deal with Australia, let's say. And Australia was not agreeing to the terms. So just to show Australia that we are not very desperate for you, and we have other partners. We have lots of other players who are ready to deal with us. They will get into number of other deals, so that Australia will feel somewhat pressurized that Europe is moving ahead with lots of other deals. Maybe in future they will not need us. So it will create a FOMO factor, fear of missing out. So those kind of deals are the bargain chip deals. But here Since it is going to reduce the tariffs to zero for 97% of their exports, it is not a bargain chip. It is going to affect their exports substantially, significantly, and it is going to double up their markets very soon in India. If we look at some of the other products in food and agriculture market, then what are the tariffs? For example, European wines. Earlier or right now the tariff was 150%, but now in future it will become 20 to 30%. Similarly, for other spirits, liquor, again nearly up to 150%, where it will reduce to 40. Beer, it will reduce from 110 to 50. For example, number of European brands like Heineken, Budweiser, etc. are popular in India also. Okay. Beer is not a very strong domain of mine, so if I'm not able to pronounce the brand name correctly, or if I'm getting the place of origin wrongly, I'm sorry for that. But let's say certain European beers are quite popular in India, and there will definitely be an advantage, and tariffs will reduce by nearly half. So in this area, tariffs are not fundamentally reducing to zero, but they are reducing substantially from earlier. Olive oil, margarine, vegetable oils, there it will reduce from nearly 45% to zero. Similarly, kiwis, pears, certain high value fruits from Europe, again from 33% to 10%, but there will be a quota to it. On agricultural products, there are still restrictions. They are not exactly in the 0% and infinite category. Okay? It is not a 100% open market, but you can see substantial benefits. Fruit juices, non-alcoholic beer from nearly 55 to 0, processed food from 50 to 0%, and likewise you can see. So in agriculture market, we have retained certain tariffs, and that is because our agricultural markets here, first of all, they are not as big as the other electronics and the industrial markets. Secondly, it is a very sensitive market for India, where farmer protests are very common, and where signing a trade deal is not just about understanding the mutual benefits, but it is a lot about the domestic politics also. And in Europe also, for example, in France, in a number of other countries, we have read about the farmer protesting against the international deals those countries have signed. So agriculture is not such an easy issue everywhere. So overall, if we want to assess, I've shown you the tariff reduction. Now if you want to assess, then almost 97% of European goods export will be eliminated in terms of tariff. Means they can enter India at almost zero or at a significantly reduced tariff. So it will benefit almost all the exporters in Europe. For Indian buyers, it will mean 4 billion euros of saving. 4 billion euros will be saved for Indian customer, because the tariffs are paid by Indian people when they buy European products in India, because tariffs are collected when those European products enter Indian market, and those tariffs are collected by government of India. So it will lead to a revenue loss of $4 billion for government of India, 4 billion euros, and it will be saving for Indian people, because those products will become cheaper by nearly 4 billion euros. Okay. Then so far India has not given such a big market access to any trade partner. India already has signed FTA with UK, with Australia, with New Zealand, with Japan, with South Korea, Singapore, number of countries. But such a big market access where 97% of your existing exports can enter my country almost free of duties, that kind of access is unprecedented. That's why it's a forward-looking deal. It's not a compromise deal. It's not a token deal. Its timing is quite politically, I would say, appropriate or ironic, but it's not a deal which is purely signed because of Donald Trump's pressure and uncertainty. This deal was building from a long time, building up for a long time, and it's just signed little bit in haste, I would say. Still, the shape which both the sides have given to the deal makes it a very forward-looking deal. Then in Indian services market, particularly financial services and maritime transport, where there are a lot of services import, Indian market will now be open to European players. So it is not just industrial market and agriculture market, but rather services market also, which will be open. So there are a number of European financial services providers which are already present in India. Okay? Whether it is DBS, whether it is the Bundesbank, whether it is the RBS, whether it is Barclays. Barclays is a UK based, but in a way we call it European only. It might not be part of EU or in this deal, but similar kind of financial service providers will get lots of advantage. And similarly, the maritime transportation is also an area where India hires a lot of foreign services, so that will also be an access. And similarly, if you see, there will be a better protection for the European intellectual property automatically, because the nature of this deal is not FTA. It is actually CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. So it's a very comprehensive deal. It's a deal where we do not just talk about the products. We talk about products, we talk about services, we talk about the market access, we talk about the intellectual property, we talk about the future investment rights. So all of those are there. Next. Now we have looked at what Europe will gain. Now let us look at what India is going to gain out of it. So again, like Europe is going to get 97%. India is going to get access for 99.5%, roughly same thing. It's not going to be creating a big difference. Almost entire trade from both sides is going to be duty free for either side. So it is a big change. Immediately zero duty on 70.4% means 70% of the duty and tariffs which European pay on Indian products, they will be waived off immediately. They will be cutting to zero immediately. So immediate effect is nearly 70% of the products that India currently exports to European Union, those products will become cheaper for European buyers. It will be a win-win situation for Indian exporters as well as European buyers. And then there will be phased elimination for sensitive items over 3 to 5 years. As we said, in Indian case it was largely 5 to 7 years, in European case it is 3 to 5 years. And similarly for the sectors like cars, steel, shrimp, there will be certain quotas through which there will be better access, preferential access. So it will not be a completely open market, but India will be allowed a more access, bigger access. Then key sectors from India which are going to benefit from the zero duty. So that is textiles and apparels, leather and footwear. Mind, these are also the sectors which are one of the most labor intensive sectors. You look at the textile, you look at leather footwear, you look at gems and jewelry, marine products, toys, sports. All of these products are primarily exported from MSME, micro, soft and medium enterprises. And that is why these create far more jobs compared to the big and large scale industry. For example, if we talk about textiles, textile creates 70 times more jobs compared to steel sector. If we generate, let's say 100 crore rupees or $100 million worth of exports from steel sector, and let's say we create 100 jobs. If we export $100 million of exports from textile, then we are going to create 7,000 jobs in India. So that much is the difference between the textile and the steel sector. That much labor intensiveness difference is there. Okay, 70 times. Now, these sectors currently face 4 to 26% tariffs, which will now be eliminated. And in the competitive space where India is currently tied for the European market along with Vietnam, South Korea, China, Japan, and number of other countries, including Thailand, Indonesia also. So this much difference will create a big competitive edge for Indian companies. And together, if you look at these products which are zero duty access, together they are nearly $33 billion in export value. And if you look at it in terms of the duty structure, then immediately zero duty will be for textile apparels, leather footwear, gems and jewelry, the products which are discussed on the last page. Okay. So day one, immediately they will be brought to zero. Then phased zero duty means slowly over time the duty will be reduced. So that is largely for processed food items, select marine products, arms and ammunition. So largely the agriculture sector and the defense sector, where also we plan to reduce it to zero duty in 3 to 5 years. Then certain other food products like poultry products, preserved vegetables, bakery products, cars, steel, shrimp. Over there we are not going to get free market access to Europe, but we are going to get better and preferential market access under higher quotas. What is a quota? For example, annual imports into Europe are total 30 billion euros. If India gets 15% quota in that, that means India is allowed 15% of total imports in Europe. So India can export up to, let's say if total is 20, India will be able to export $3 billion. So let's say if India is currently allowed quota of 5% and in future India is given quota of 20%, then our exports can grow up to 4 times. So those quotas will be very useful there. And certain areas are excluded, like dairy, which is sensitive to both India and Europe. Cereals, soy meal, fruits and vegetables. So largely, agriculture sector has been completely, certain areas from agriculture has been completely kept outside the domain of trade pact. As I mentioned in the early part also, agriculture is actually the most difficult area where domestic politics also come into picture very strongly. So it's a fair thing to exclude a small area, but largely both the countries are now agreeing for big future commitment. In terms of services sector, if we look at it, then 144 services subsector, which includes the IT, ITES, where India has a strong base, or the professional and the business services, education, R&D, there India will get the better access and more quotas. And similarly, there will be framework for social security agreements, and this will integrate India's position as a global services hub into global value chain in a better way. So India will become global services provider, which it already is as well, in a stronger way. It will strengthen its current position, which is not very bad presently also. If we look at it in terms of benefits to rural India, the services sector benefits, those are for relatively rich, urban, upper middle class people in India who wants to study in Europe, who wants to offer their services in Europe. But let us talk about the rural India. What is there for labor intensive manufacturing? So I've already discussed textile apparels, leather footwear, chemicals, gems and jewelry, all these sectors which are primarily MSME sectors, where masses gets job, which are labor intensive sectors, there is going to be zero duty. So that is where large number of jobs are going to be created in rural India, and it is going to boost the rural economy, small town economy. So in that sense, it is going to be a bigger change and going to have a bigger impact on rural India. Similarly, we look at it in terms of agriculture and rural incomes. Although we are not going to get open market, but even with quotas and lower duties, we will get preferential access for tea, coffee, spices, and certain fruits, onion, and processed foods. So a small section in agriculture is also going to get benefit from this deal. So agriculture is not completely excluded. Certain aspects of agriculture, certain sub-products, subcategories in agriculture are also included under the preferential treatment clauses. So over there also, a lot of people in rural India are going to benefit. Now, let us summarize it. We have discussed that this deal is not a compromise deal. This deal is not a bargain chip. This deal is not just to show a thumb, or let's say to mock Donald Trump, as some people initially believed, or some Western commentators initially presented this deal like that, that in a major step towards mocking USA, India and Europe have signed a major deal when USA is putting pressure on both of them. So this kind of reporting I've seen as well. So it is not exactly like that, because if you look at the nature of deal, this is trying to address the fundamental questions both the regions have. Both the regions are going to open their market in a significant manner, and almost every product that they trade with each other, nearly 99% of their markets, or more than 95% of markets in both the countries, is going to be open for each other. So it's a forward-looking deal. It's a deal which will strengthen India's value chain. It's a deal which will create India as a better services hub, and it will also establish India as a better manufacturing hub. There are lots of companies which wants to invest in India but are afraid, because if they export from India, compared to China, they faced higher tariffs when entering USA. They faced higher transportation costs when they entered Europe. Similarly, they had number of other challenges. Now, if we can manufacture in India and send those products into Europe at zero duty, at a very low duty, then definitely it is going to attract a lot of global manufacturers. For example, think about Apple. Apple is manufacturing its phones in India. In future, it is planning, and in fact, it has already announced that it is going to manufacture the tablets in India, and it is planning about the Macs as well. So if those products can enter Europe with zero duty or low duty, think about the benefits for Apple. So Apple will increase production in India in that case. So in that sense, it is going to establish India as a better manufacturing hub as well. So definitely this deal is not an immediate shortcut deal. This deal is a long-term deal with significant benefits to both the parties. And the question that I raised in the beginning, that where does this place India? I've already answered that. Then will India remain just a source of cheap labor? My answer is yes or no. Yes, it is focusing on the value chain. India is not just trying to create more and more exports of lower value products from India to Europe, but all kind of products are going to get into Europe because this is affecting all the exports that we currently do. However, since on the day one, it is largely the MSME areas and it is largely the high labor intensive industry. So in the beginning, definitely it is going to help to create more jobs. And primarily the USP of certain sectors in that category is that labor in India is more affordable than number of other areas. So cheap labor, yes, is going to matter in the beginning, but in the future, after 3 years, 5 years, number of other high value products will also get better access, and where not just the cheap labor aspects will come into picture, but technology will come into picture, infrastructure will come into picture, shipping lines will come into picture. So in the long term, it is not going to remain only on the basis of the cheap labor. We are not just establishing low cost manufacturing in India on the basis of this deal, or we are not just increasing the exports of low cost manufacturing. In the beginning, the focus will be there because the immediate focus is to create jobs, but in the future, we do have a very clear vision for rising up the value chain. Similarly, is Europe and India just a market for each other, or are they strategic partner? So being a strategic partner is not just about aligning the interest with each other. It is also about your domestic politics. It is also about number of other issues on which there can be fundamental agreements or disagreements. For example, many people may not remember today, but there was a major case involving the Italian Marines who were captured in India over the murder of some Indian fishermen, and that case became an issue of national pride in Italy, as well as it remained very sensitive in India. So even small political issues, small bilateral issues can derail years of economic progress. So economic progress or economic integration is not the only way, or it is not the sure way towards becoming the strategic partners, unless a very significant military partnership is also there, unless our geopolitical interests also align with each other. I would not say that we have become strong strategic partners. And right now, there is a lot of difference between India and EU on the question of Russia. There is a lot of difference between India and EU on the pharmaceutical patents and a number of other geopolitical issues as well. Both the regions see each other in a very different light. And as a result, on strategic ladder, we are definitely becoming more close to each other, but we need more geopolitical alignment rather than merely the economic alignment. Then only we will become that strong strategic partners. Otherwise, economic partnerships, they can be built very quickly and they can also be broken very quickly. And mutual trust is not established just on the basis of trade. This is my assessment to it. However, I'm not saying that trade doesn't matter. Trade matters a lot, people to people contact matters a lot, and appreciation for each other's products and increasing dependency on each other definitely brings two regions closer. So definitely it will enhance the bond between the two regions. It will enhance the understanding of mutual understanding of each other in both the regions. However, a very strong strategic partnership, I will again say, not that much. And with that, I would like to end this session. I hope you have understood this topic in a better and comprehensive manner beyond just the tariff numbers and just the product lists. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe and share the word. Thank you.